In 1951, a steelworker in Pittsburgh earned $3,800 a year, sent 3 kids to school, owned his home, carried no debt, and still put money away every single month. His wife never worked a paid job. Economists today call that mathematically impossible. His grandchildren call it Tuesday. These 25 habits were not secrets. They were survival code. And somewhere between the credit card and the second income, every single one of them got buried. Number 25, the Sunday planning session. Every Sunday evening, couples sat down at the kitchen table with a pad of paper, last week's receipts, and next week's paycheck stub. They planned every dollar before it arrived. Grocery list written. Bill due dates marked. Discretionary spending agreed upon out loud between 2 people. When you have one income and no safety net, financial surprises are not inconveniences. They are catastrophes. The Sunday session was how couples made sure there were none. Financial researchers today find that couples who discuss money weekly accumulate significantly more wealth than those who do not. The 1950s couple did not need a study. They needed the rent paid. Number 24. The 2-week pantry rule. Before making a single grocery purchase, a thrifty housewife checked what she already had and planned 2 full weeks of meals around existing pantry stock before writing anything on the list. Canned goods rotated from the back forward. Nothing spoiled. Nothing was forgotten until it turned green. The average American household today throws away roughly 30 to 40% of the food it buys. In 1952, that number was close to 0. Not because food was better preserved, because it was tracked, planned, and respected. Number 23. Buying 1 year behind. A 1955 Chevrolet purchased in 1956 cost 30% less than it did 12 months earlier. The habit of buying last year's model at this year's prices was so ingrained in working-class culture, it barely needed to be stated. Cars, appliances, furniture, even clothing went on sale the moment a newer version existed. Your grandfather was not behind the times. He was ahead of the game by exactly 12 months, and the money he saved buying 1 cycle behind bought him something the man with the brand new model never had. Equity. Number 22. Keeping a household ledger, not a mental note. An actual handwritten book where every transaction went. Income on the left, expenses on the right. The balance at the bottom told you exactly where you stood with no room for self-delusion. A $4 splurge on a restaurant meal looked very different, written in ink next to the $12 set aside for groceries. Banks introduced the monthly statement as a replacement for this habit, and it worked brilliantly in their favor. By the time you saw what you had spent, 30 days had passed. The ledger showed you in real time. Number 21, the coffee can savings. Banks were not universally trusted in households that had lived through 1929. So alongside whatever sat in the savings account, working families kept cash hidden at home, often in a coffee can, a mason jar, a sock in the back of the drawer. Not paranoia. Redundancy. Earmarked for a specific purpose. Car registration. School clothes in August. The dentist who charged $8 a visit. Financial researchers today find that households with even $400 in liquid accessible savings are dramatically more stable than those without it. The 1950s family already knew this. They just stored the data in a Maxwell House tin. Number 20. Line drying everything. A clothes dryer cost money to run, so most households ran it only in emergencies. A wooden clothesline in the backyard handled the rest. Line drying extended fabric life, saved on electricity, and eliminated the mechanical wear that tumble drying produced. A woman who line dried her family's laundry for 30 years kept clothing in service 3 to 5 times longer. When clothing represented a meaningful portion of the household budget, that difference compounded dramatically over time. The clothesline your grandmother used was a depreciation prevention tool disguised as a length of rope. Number 19. The see ya and come again garden. Experienced gardeners planted crops designed to keep producing all season. Leaf lettuce that regrew after cutting. Kale that bore new growth for months. Runner beans that kept climbing until frost. The goal was not a single harvest. The goal was eliminating grocery spending in entire categories for 6 months of the year. A well-planned kitchen garden in a northern state could stop a family from buying green vegetables entirely between May and October. Calculated at modern produce prices, the return on $20 in seeds often exceeds $1,200 per season. Number 18. Never carrying a balance. The 1950s household that understood money treated credit cards with extreme suspicion. If you could not pay the full balance at the end of the month, you did not charge it. Period. This single rule is the exact principle that separates wealth-building households from debt-servicing ones in every income bracket across every era of American financial history. The interest rate on carried balances in the 1960s was 18%. Today, it averages over 22%. The math has never once worked in favor of the person carrying the balance. Number 17. Making soup from everything. Soup in the 1950s household was not a recipe. It was a system. Chicken carcasses, vegetable peelings, wilted celery, ham bones, slightly soft carrots. Everything too far gone for its primary purpose, but too valuable to discard, went into the stock pot. A 4-pound chicken bought on Tuesday became a roasted bird for dinner, sandwiches on Wednesday, and soup on Thursday. 3 meals from one purchase. The modern household that throws away the carcass of a rotisserie chicken is discarding roughly $2 in stock and the foundation of 3 additional servings. Your grandmother called this just cooking. Number 16. Shopping at the butcher at closing time. It was common knowledge among housewives in the 1940s and 1950s that meat priced to move appeared on butcher counters late in the afternoon. Cuts that would not survive another day got marked down sharply. A woman who timed her shopping right could bring home pork chops at half price. This required one critical mental reversal. You shopped for what was discounted, not for what the recipe called for. The recipe adapted, the budget did not. That inversion, building your meal plan around price opportunities rather than building your spending around a predetermined plan, is the structural difference between a household that saves and one that spends. Number 15. Maintaining friendships with practical skills. The neighbor who was a plumber, the cousin who was an electrician, the church member who spent 30 years as a seamstress. These relationships were cultivated deliberately and maintained with reciprocity. If the plumber fixed your pipes, you helped him move furniture. The informal exchange of skilled labor through social networks eliminated hundreds of dollars per year in professional service fees. This was not charity. It was a functioning social economy built on trust that operated entirely outside the cash system. The 1950s couple had fewer service bills, not only because they could do more themselves, but because their community could do the rest. Pattern break. Here is what nobody talks about. The habits so far are about spending less. The next set is about something more powerful, keeping money inside the family system instead of sending it permanently to institutions designed to extract it. The 1950s couple was not wealthy in spite of a single income. They were wealthy because of how few outside hands could reach into their household before money had a chance to accumulate. Number 14. Teaching children to want less. Children in working households received one gift at Christmas and one at their birthday. No negotiation, no comparison to what other children received. Children who grew up in this system developed a fundamentally different relationship to consumer desire. Want did not automatically translate into expect. The psychological foundation this built, the ability to feel desire without acting on it, is the single most underrated financial skill any human being can possess. Impulse spending is structurally impossible in a person who learned early that wanting something is not the same as needing it. Number 13. The second-hand first rule. Before any new purchase, the question was always asked first. Can we find this used? Clothing at the church rummage sale. Furniture at the estate auction. Tools at the hardware store. Clearance bin. The default purchasing channel was second-hand, and new was the exception that required justification. An estate auction in 1955 could furnish an entire living room for $30. The economics have never changed. You buy someone else's depreciation instead of absorbing it yourself. Number 12. Heating only the rooms in use. Families heated the kitchen and the living room. Bedrooms stayed cold. Parlors and guest rooms were closed off entirely from October through March. The difference in heating cost between a fully warmed house and a strategically heated one was significant, on a budget where every dollar was accounted for. More importantly, the family that learned to tolerate modest discomfort without spending money to fix it built a tolerance that served them in every other financial decision they made. The ability to be slightly uncomfortable without immediately reaching for the wallet is more powerful than most financial advisors will ever acknowledge. Number 11. Wearing clothing until it was gone. Clothes had a complete life cycle. New went to church. Church clothes became school clothes. School clothes became work-at-home clothes. Work-at-home clothes became rags. Nothing was discarded until it had passed through every category of use. A family of 5 that applied this system purchased new clothing only for the eldest child and allowed everything to cascade downward. This is not poverty management. This is asset management applied to textiles. The modern equivalent is a closet full of items worn fewer than 10 times each, owned by someone who claims they have nothing to wear. Number 10. Keeping the car running forever. The target was not a new car every 5 years. The target was the same car for 15 years, maintained meticulously so it never failed. Oil changes on schedule, belts replaced before they broke. A 1948 Ford driven with discipline could serve a family through the 1960s without a car payment ever returning to the household. A car payment eliminated is not merely a monthly saving. It is monthly cash flow that, redirected consistently into savings, produces meaningful financial ballast. The couple that drove their car into the ground on purpose understood this precisely. Number 9. Borrowing before buying. Tools needed once were borrowed from neighbors before a purchase was considered. A specialty pan needed for one recipe went to the neighbor's door first. A ladder for a single gutter cleaning came from across the street. The cultural norm of borrowing practical items kept dozens of single-use purchases from draining budgets every year. The entire sharing economy of the 21st century is a technological recreation of what the 1950s neighborhood did naturally because people knew each other's names. Your grandmother's version cost a plate of cookies and a returned favor. Number 8. Preserving the summer surplus. A bushel of tomatoes in August cost 50 cents at the farm stand. The same volume in canned tomatoes at the winter grocery store cost $3. The family that canned 40 quarts of tomatoes in August paid summer prices all winter long. A chest freezer bought in 1958 for $85 paid for itself within 2 seasons and went on producing returns for 25 years. The math on preservation has never changed. The willingness to spend a Saturday doing it has. Number 7. The 15-year mortgage. Banks preferred the 30-year term. They still do. A 30-year mortgage on a $14,000 house in 1955 at 5% cost the borrower more than the house was worth in additional interest. The 15-year mortgage cut that interest bill in half and produced a paid-off house by the time children were entering college. Families on 15-year mortgages lived without a housing payment for the final 15 years of their working lives. The bank made less on the 15-year note, which is exactly why nobody recommends it anymore, and why your grandfather would have called your 30-year banker a very good salesman. Number 6. Making gifts instead of buying them. A hand-quilted blanket, a jar of homemade preserves, a repaired piece of furniture, a knitted sweater. These were not consolation prizes for people who could not afford the real gift. They were the real gift. The social economy of giving in the 1950s valued handmade above store-bought, explicitly and without apology. A woman who gave handmade Christmas gifts across a family of 30 was not cheap. She was respected. She had converted her skills into the currency of relationship without spending a dollar from the household budget. Number 5. Living in a smaller house than you could afford. There were families who bought the largest house the bank would approve and stretched their budget to the seams. But the families that built lasting stability bought one level below what they qualified for, paid it off faster, heated it cheaper, and kept their monthly housing cost well below the bank's suggestion. The gap between what you can afford and what you choose to spend is where wealth is created in every income bracket at every point in American financial history. Your grandparents called that gap savings. Banks call it unused borrowing capacity. The definition you choose determines everything. Number 4. Fixing things the day they broke. A small leak ignored becomes a flooded basement. A loose roof shingle left unattended becomes a rotten rafter. The 1950s homeowner understood maintenance not as optional upkeep, but as damage prevention with a calculable return. Fixing the problem today for $2 versus deferring it until it cost $200 was not a difficult calculation. It was obvious. American households today defer maintenance at staggering rates, accumulating backlogs that eventually force the large expenditure the small fix would have prevented. A screwdriver applied on a Saturday morning is worth more per hour than almost any investment your financial advisor will recommend. Number 3. The monthly financial review. Once a month, scheduled and non-negotiable, the couple reviewed household finances together. Progress toward goals stated explicitly. Shortfalls examined without blame. Priorities renegotiated if circumstances had changed. This was not a date night. It was a board meeting with 2 voting members and one shared mission. Couples who operated this system rarely surprised each other with debts and rarely reached retirement without a clear picture of where they stood. 2 people working from the same information did that better than 2 people working from separate assumptions every time. Number 2. Contentment as a practiced skill. The 1950s household did not visit stores without a list. They did not read catalogs for entertainment. They did not compare their possessions to neighbors in an upward direction. They evaluated what they had against what they needed, found the gap acceptable, and left it there. You cannot sell dissatisfaction to someone who has decided to be satisfied. You cannot market aspirational spending to someone whose aspirations are non-commercial. The 1950s couple who lived this way was functionally invisible to the advertising industry. And the advertising industry spent the following 70 years trying to figure out how to fix that. Number 1. Treating savings as the first bill paid, not what was left over, not the remainder after all other obligations were met. The first payment, before groceries, before utilities, before anything else left the paycheck. A fixed amount went directly into savings, as if it were a debt owed to the future. The steelworker in Pittsburgh earning $3,800 a year put money away before he allowed himself to see the rest. The rest was what he lived on. It was not sacrifice. It was sequence. He paid his future self first and let his present self manage what remained. The income was never the secret. One income built American families through 3 decades of prosperity, not because it was especially large, but because 2 people pointed at the same target and refused to miss. These 25 habits are not quaint relics. They are engineering. What replaced them was not better. It was more profitable for the people selling the replacement. You now know the original. What you do with it is the only variable left.